Here we go again, the dreaded tiny room where we need to set up interview lighting. We always get thrown into these situations. They're like, hey, go film in that closet. It should be good. And boy, is it a challenge. But what do we have control over? The lighting. So today we are going to use inexpensive lights, the Amaran 200X, the T2C tube, and the Ace 25 puck light. We'll take those lights in various combinations, giving us different looks in this small space. Like this one. If you're new to the channel, I'm Peter Milkery, a Dallas-based DP and Gaffer. Let's get into it. When you get thrown into a space like this, there are a lot of things that are out of your control, but there are some things that are in your control that can help improve the look overall. So before we get into lighting, let's go over some tips and tricks to improve your framing and look overall. So first of all, when you're in a tiny space, you want to do everything possible to create depth. And you're like, well, how can we create depth and space when we're in a tiny space? So first off, get the subject away from the background. You don't want to throw them into the background like this and have them blending in with the background unless that's the look you're going for, because it just doesn't look good. So let's separate them from that background as much as we can, get them close to the camera. And then also, if you're in a room, a lot of times there's a door to that room, and that door can have the camera outside of it sometimes to create a little bit of depth. Shoot into a corner if all possible, trying not to flatten out the space. Those are some great tips. And if you have the capability, shoot a lot more shallow, blur out that background a bit so then it's not so busy and your focus is on the subject. All right, let's jump into the lighting. When we're thrown into these closets, a lot of times we have no control over the lighting or limited control of the lighting. So we probably have our fluorescent bulbs coming in from above and they are terrible. If we're lucky, we get a window in the space and we have that beautiful natural lighting coming in, and sometimes you could get away with just keying your subject with that light. So what can you do in this situation? I would recommend leaning into what's already there and supplementing it if you're limited on lighting and time, because totally cutting off your overheads can give you a very moody look. Now that may be what you're going for, and that's what I showed in the beginning. So let's get into our first look and go for that moody look and see what it looks like. Let's jump into our first look. So we have the 200X as our key light. We are running the Godox Octabox 90 with internal diffusion, external diffusion, and a grid to help us with some control. It's just popping out here right out of frame. We have our T2C with a grid as well, creating our edge and our hair light. And then our practical is the Ace 25. Let's go ahead and run through all the different looks that we can get with this setup. And now we have some RGB in the mix. We have our 200X keying us with the Octabox 90, double diffused with the grid. Our heavy lifting is being done by the T2C set to purple. It is a practical, meaning you do see it in the frame, but it is actually lighting the scene and it's actually giving me a little bit of an edge here. And then we have the Ace just out of frame here, kind of wrapping that key light a little bit over and giving us some warmth. Let's take a look at how everything's playing. What if we change that purple light to 3200? Well, that's what it looks like. Why isn't this chair working? It's supposed to change the lights. Anyways, what are your go-to setups when you get thrown into a tiny space like this, or you have to travel to do these basic interview setups? What's your budget solution and how do you pack it all up? I want to know down in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It pushes me to get more content out like this to you guys, and commenting, liking, and even hyping truly do help, and it doesn't cost you anything yet, but it may in the future. All right, let's get into some more lighting. On this setup, we're going to adjust the overhead lighting with our camera. So we're gonna change our camera settings to make our overhead lights darker, so then we can bring in our lights and make things pop. So we're going to bring in the 200X, fire that guy up right now, and then we're going to add a nice hair light here, and then we're going to add a fun little light that's hidden away. It's actually right behind me, and it is the Ace. It's actually right here. So if I wasn't in front of it, it would be in frame. But since I'm sitting in front of it, it's really nice and it plays real well. Let's take a look at how all these play. Just kidding, don't do this. So if you're short on time and you have to get something set up quickly, a lot of the times you could just bounce something in the ceiling and remove those overhead lights. So we cut the overhead lights here and we have the 200X going into our Octabox 90 with our double diffusion. I removed the grid so we have a good spread. But what does it look like right now? It looks really flat. But what you can do is you can control where you bounce that light and it can give it some direction. So if it's bouncing and coming straight on, well, it's going to look flat. If I make it bounce from over here, maybe I could get a little shape. So let's see if I move it, what happens. That already gave me some shape. You can see that I have a darker fill side here and my key side is a lot brighter here. And it helped control some of the spill that's hitting the background as well, which is really nice. We do have our T2C here, which is our practical and play. Let's see what it looks like with it off. And then let's see what it looks like with our key light off. Like I said, it's doing all the heavy lifting. And let's turn on that T2C. And then let's turn our key back on. Again, it's really simple to set up a bounce light. It helps to diffuse it with a softbox or dome, and then it gets diffused again when it bounces, making it extra soft compared to those overhead lights. We left the overheads on for this one and we're keying with the T2C and we have the ace in the background. Well, you know what happened to our key light, our 200X? It just disappeared. So we got stuck with a tube and just a little puck light. Well, you know what? Match that tube to your overhead lights and you can make it work. Let's see what it looks like when we remove that key light. That's what it looks like with just overheads and the ace in the background, and then just the overheads. Let's bring in that key light, which is our tube, and the ace is back. I want to give a big shout out to every single one of you. I appreciate you so much. Do not turn off this video. Click like, subscribe, everything. Click on all these videos. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one.